Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So, we are back with Germanicus and the Romans, at a slightly higher tier this time, up to tier 6 now. I've actually been playing these guys quite a bit. After my first video I did on Germanicus like a couple of days ago, maybe a bit longer by the time it actually comes out, you should have noticed that I wasn't really a huge fan of Germanicus. I felt that, despite being quite good, it wasn't the most interesting unit to play, and the lack of mobility and everything didn't really fit my playstyle. But I've got to say, the more I've been playing him, the more I have been enjoying him. It does work really well with these Romans. And these tier 6s are a lot nicer, for me, I find, compared to the Principes at tier 5. So, let's just talk briefly a little bit about the unit. So, the mobility, which is obviously the main thing I always consider with most of my units, because for me, the key to a fun and happy playstyle is about good mobility. And while these guys do have a really slow base movement speed, 3.5 and you get in +1 with the equipment, so 3.6. It doesn't actually feel quite as painful as it's sort of written on paper. I don't find them to be horrifically bad. Maybe that's I'm just getting into the mindset of playing a slower unit now, so it doesn't feel quite so bad. But you can make a bit of ground with a heavy infantry charge just to cover distance, and they don't actually feel that slow. So first things first, mobility, not as bad as I was expecting it to be. And then on top of that, their sort of aggression and defensive stats are just awesome. So in terms of body armor, they start with that lovely base. 131 as a base is just lovely. That's, you know, getting quite good for this tier. Combined with that, once you've got some of the most of the equipment upgrades, the body armors, the legs, and the helmets. There's a couple of choices there. I went for the one that gave the most armor. You actually get that armor value up really quite high. What's that? 152 plus 38 shield armor. You know, you're going to be meeting the weapon damage of most all cavalry at this tier. And while you're still going to be overdone a little bit by infantry, it's not going to be too much. So, yeah, the body armor makes these guys take not very much damage in combat with other units. Combined to that, they get a reasonable melee defense and shield defense, and obviously that solid missile block chance. Now, one thing I just wanted to point out on missile block chance, because it's going to play a really important part in today's video, is the two shield options you have. So you get the Augustan Scutrum and the reinforced version of it. And the difference is the missile block chance and the melee defense. So you're gaining 4 missile block chance by going for the second shield upgrade. In turn, you are sacrificing for shield melee defense. So melee defense, shield melee defense is basically your ability to avoid being hit by enemy infantry. So it's actually a really useful thing, something you definitely want to be having. And while missile block chance has the potential to be useful, in this case it's really not, because as Romans you have access to Testudo. And with the first shield, with the higher melee defense, your missile defense is already 51? No, 49. I can do maths, honest. 49. Add on to that, the 56 you get for the missile block chance is going to put you at 105. So you're already over 100, so there's no benefit. As long as, obviously, if you're getting shot outside of Testudo, it will give you a very slight benefit, but most of the time if you're being shot at by missiles, you can enter Testudo, in which this will give no benefit over this shield, other than the fact you'll be worse in hand-to-hand combat. So I'd advise against that shield. The only possible reason to unlock it would be the fact that actually it does carry over to the next tier, so if you wanted to sort of get ahead of yourselves and get some stuff unlocked so you don't have to do it quite from such a stock grind next time, then that might be advisable. So, other than that, let's hop into our replay. It's kind of an interesting one, I think, for today, and see how we get on with battle with these tier 6s. So, we have loaded into our replay with our Romans. I decided to spawn in on town. I just felt that you might as well, particularly being Roman infantry, and there was quite a reasonable amount of support here. At least I thought there was, although looking at it now, it doesn't look like there's too much here. We've got some dogs and a couple of Falconsmen down on this side. Whereas just a little bit of cavalry, some tier 7 Blood Riders kicking around down here. I spread myself out into a slightly thinner line, and it looks like I decided that, because there wasn't actually much support coming my way, I expected some of these people to be coming over, but they didn't. I thought I was best, at least in the short term, just to hold my ground. See what everyone else was doing, not make, I don't want to be pushing hard forwards on my own and get myself surrounded if it turns out there's lots of enemy, and I wanted to give myself a reasonable chance to retreat if needed. So as these first group of enemies rounded the corner, I was starting to get nervous, particularly about the presence of these units of javelins. But then this was compounded when the enemy brought up another 2 units of archers and spearmen as well. And I was really starting to think, well, I don't really want to be facing these guys sort of on my own. I was thinking about trying to pull back maybe through this gap, so at least I can sort of hem them in a little bit, make it a bit harder for them to get to me because they can't, you know, all go through the gap at once. So then we just wait here a little bit. Obviously I'm losing quite a lot of visibility because I've stepped too far away from this ledge here before I start to get shot. So obviously in many ways a mistake in my play, because I should have pulled back to this gap earlier. I thought about it, and then I was trying to sort of judge my turnaround on my Testudo between when those archers were shooting at me. So the idea being that when they volley, I quickly turn around and they shoot me in the front, then I turn back around and continue to walk backwards. But I'm just not very good at it, didn't time it very well, so that's why I still took damage. But then our Blood Riders did an amazing job of getting in on those archers and killed a really, really good proportion of them, and you know, wiped out 2/3 of the health off both of the units. Exactly what we wanted to see. That's perfect. So then I decided, well, if that's going to happen, then this was really my time to go. Is now. I thought these guys were initially going to push down these steps here, so not wanting to blob into sort of a 6-person mass blob, I pushed along the next run. Again, that steps quite a wider front. Obviously, don't want to all be blobbing up completely, and then I'm just trying to sort of see what my opportunities is. I go for my javelin toss just to kill off some more of these archers, and it pretty much wipes out that unit. I know there's a bit of friendly scorched earth. I felt the damage I was going to take was worth it, and I recharged these enemy centurions. These hoplite phalanxes then try and turn around. I didn't really get this unit far around enough. My military acumen was lacking a little bit there. I should have pushed these guys much further around to get a proper flank on them, but I do pop vengeance. I decide, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound and all that, and to go for it. In the meantime, we completely decimated that enemy unit, and our friendly cavalry slam back in, and we actually end up routing these guys, I think. Or if not, they're going to get cut down pretty quickly, getting out all on the floor. And you can see the amount of damage they are taking really quite quickly. In many ways, it wasn't worth me popping vengeance, because I don't really get to take full advantage of it. Although we do get this second heavy Roman infantry unit coming in, so our vengeance is obviously still activated on these guys. It's allowing us to sort of easily beat them in terms of the amount of damage they're doing. I should have perhaps considered going into formed combat here, but with everything going on, it just didn't really pan out. We unfortunately start to get a bit scorched earth here as these hound handlers come in, but I'm just trying to keep the pressure on them, trying to bring these guys around. And I have lost vengeance on all 2 units bar this first unit, which is fighting these centurions. You can see the damage difference, about 3 times as much damage in proportion. They end up routing, and that really kills them off, and I can start to focus my attention back on these hound handlers. Although they actually briefly rout there, which is kind of surprising. I decided to pull my unit through the other routed unit because I shouldn't take too much damage with that. Ultimately, it does spare the end of the hound handlers. I've forgotten that I routed there. It was obviously not very good of me. I was surrounded too much on both sides. But we don't really take too much loss of it because, you know, we were actually significantly winning that fight. It does mean, of course, we lose our vengeance, because if a unit routs, any abilities like vengeance, anything like that, automatically turn off the second the unit routs. So it's worth bearing in mind before you use your vengeance if you think you're going to be routing at some point. So we won that first fight. I was pretty pleased with that, and then I was sort of assessing my options. What am I going to be doing? My fourth thought was, let's think about getting back to base. Quite a few proven warriors coming in down here, as well as, no, just a lot of proven warriors, a bit of cavalry there as well. And we do have a reasonable amount of stuff in base, particularly with these, what's the word? Stakes! That's the word. These stakes there. But I still thought, well, I might as well get back. Why risk it? Let's get back, play it safe. You know, it's a pretty close battle, and if we can isolate and kill like a unit like this, then that is exactly what we want to be doing. I go for a javelin toss. Really bad use of a javelin there. They were too far away, and what we got 3 horses. Not worth the use of a javelin. Because now only 1 unit has got a javelin left. But we've still got all these proven warriors yet to fight. These guys are pretty tough for us. Because they often will not want to fight us in hand to hand, you know, in just a straight up fight, and their scorched earth means it can be kind of easy for them to burn us. If obviously we can force them into a frontal melee infantry fight, then, you know, we'll absolutely decimate them, but doing that isn't always that easy. But we then get these unit of war dogs coming along, which proves to be quite nice for us. They take an absolute hammering from that enemy Greek cavalry, really brutalizes us, but it does give me time to get around the corner. And these barbarians end up sticking into the fight, and then some more friendly falconmen turn up, and is about to turn into a barbarian sandwich very quickly. There goes the heavy infantry charge. 11,000 damage on the charge. That's why this heavy infantry charge is so strong. The first barbarian infantry unit routs, I'm going in with things like my stab and stuff like that, giving that extra, strike damage. And in this sort of situation, the Romans are always going to be winning. It's a little bit laggy here, I think, on the replay, but they're going down now pretty quickly. Now we've actually started to get damage in. There we go. And with them being frontally and rear flanked, they are routing pretty quickly. It's really easy for us to cut them down. And this is why the Romans can be really enjoyable to play in this sort of situation. You see the amount of damage we took, like a 20, a 95, and there are like 10,000. So frontally like this, the Romans absolutely rock in this sort of situation. Easily the best melee infantry unit for this sort of thing. So I finish off these last couple of barbarians. Having a little bit of difficulty killing the last person. I think he got knocked down maybe. But there he goes, finished and routed. So I'm next considering my options. What do I want to do? We've got kind of a bit of stuff kicking around down here. But the more I look, I think I decided it was mostly just enemy cavalry. There was those slingers here. As well as look like some archers here in the grass, which there are. So I'm quite glad I didn't go that way. Because realistically, what can I hope to do against these guys? I obviously have my Testudo to block missile damage. But as we pointed out, movement speed on these guys pretty painful, and I'm on a road and that's 4.17, so I'm never going to stand a chance of really catching them unless they make a big mistake. So I felt my best bet now, particularly given how close this game was to go for the cap, because we have quite limited. No, we don't actually have any cavalry left on our team at all. No archers really, a couple of slingers, but nothing major. And these guys have still got so much range. They're really they've got the winning hand in this sort of situation, because given time, they're always going to be able to pepper us while keeping distance. And what can any of our units really do? See, our Romans are advancing across down here. Let's stop to think about the situation, not quite sure what they want to do. But ultimately, as soon as you start to move away, you expose rear flanks like this, and this is where the enemy archers and stuff really start to come into their own, because they're going to put damage down in this sort of situation. Which is kind of why I was trying to avoid it. Just caught a few cavalry on the bridge, making use of my heavy infantry charge. So that's why I was pushing for the base, because I felt in an annihilation sort of situation, the only thing we can do is lose unless we could hold out long enough on the timer. So I decided to go to the base just to apply pressure onto them anyway. So it's just a case of moving up, really. I'm moving up. I'm obviously being shot at a little bit now, but I'm not going to go into Testudo. This is kind of a mistake people make. Testudo only blocks your damage from the front, and I need to get into the base. So if I went to go into Testudo now, all I'm going to do is reach my destination 30% slower, and I won't get any missile block benefit from that. So I get in, turn around, now we can go on with Testudo. And I could be confident I'm going to be able to block these enemy missile units from the front, which is what I was trying to do, because all these guys we saw, the slingers down here, and these archers over here, are all frontal units. Obviously the big problem being this enemy cavalry, which I know is kicking around. I turn to intercept a heavy infantry charge, and we actually win the charge on these Greeks. I think they're a bit slow in getting their charge off, and we kill them and rout them really quickly, which is good. Kind of one of the benefits of always trying to get your heavy infantry charge off in time. I'm leaving these other two units out. I didn't notice that this one until a bit later on got his Testudo got knocked off, because once you enter combat, Testudo deactivates. And I hadn't noticed that, and of course that means this unit is a little bit vulnerable to missile fire. It's just a mistake on my part, but I was trying to leave these two units. There we go. I realised these two units in the fight, sort of here. So that there's no point in having them chasing all this cavalry around. I might as well just use one unit to try and deter the cavalry. The archers haven't seemed to realise that frontally I am invulnerable to the missile fire. You see the 100% missile block chance. Is what they should be doing is sending a unit round to the flank. If they could get a unit behind me, then they could shoot one guy in the back, and then I'd have to turn the unit round, in which case this guy could shoot a guy in the back, because Testudo offers no missile block chance from the rear. So in the meantime, we get engaged by the enemy cavalry, and of course it got close enough that it knocked off the Testudo on my unit again, and that meant they got on. I hit it and reset my cap on that unit. Obviously we're winning kind of easily against these equites in this sort of case, keeping the damage on these guys. I just want to check if my math is correct. It's 105. I can count. So I'm trying to keep these guys up. I'm conscious of these slingers were coming up the steps. If they'd come much closer, I would have probably sent a unit in a heavy infantry charge forward, because I felt I would have been able to catch them. But in this sort of situation, I'm trying to keep my missile block, because I want these guys to stay at the front shooting me, because they can't do anything. These slingers understand the sort of situation much more and try and get a flank. But thankfully, our Falxers play the part absolutely perfectly and drive those slingers off. Absolutely the right thing to do. And of course, it means that they can't damage my units now from the front, and we are capping out. And it's obviously giving me lots of lovely cap points. Again, these guys try and come up. But again, they're kind of just missing the point. They're trying to shoot in something that they think is in front of me. They actually get a hit on there somehow. I don't quite know why. But they don't do it again. Frontally, they just can't do anything to me. They can shoot me as much as I like, and all they're doing is giving me defense points and allowing me to cap out the base. Because what they should be doing now is splitting their units so they can get some round behind me to shoot shots into me. Trying to shoot the Falksman, great as it is not going to make any difference to the cap because I'm the one holding all the cap points, and there we go, victory. So that's how sort of Testudo can really be a winning factor in this sort of situation, because it allows you to cap out, and at the very least it forces the enemy hand, because they have to come to you, you know, once I'm capping out in that situation. You cap out very quickly in this game, particularly with infantry, particularly if there's a good number of units left as well, and the fact that you can get invulnerable to missiles makes it, you know, really not easy, but certainly a viable option to cap out in that sort of situation. More so than any other unit I've ever played, because I have not really played these Romans very much. I've never had a unit that's had a 100+ missile block chance to be able to definitively resist enemy missiles. So yeah, so it's really good. Really pleased with the outcome of that one. Obviously, from the archer player point of view, as I was saying, is exactly what he should have done is split his units. If he sent something round behind me, then, you know, if you have one unit in front of a Testudo Romans and one unit behind, then there's nothing they can do, because if they get shot in the back from either way, then they're going to receive full damage, because the Testudo only works to the front and the sides. So yeah, that's what the archer player should have done to reset my cap, and then try to keep damage on me and slowly sort of whittle down my troops. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that as sort of a bit of an interesting way of how Testudo can be used to actually win quite easily some of the games. I'm going to continue playing these guys. I'm actually not a million miles off getting these up to the tier 7 now, which I'm quite looking forward to. The Centurions, only, what, 15,000 experience, something like that, and I will be there. So, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel for lots more Total War Arena content, and I shall see you all on the next video.